Florida State football program. As we build a new culture and foundation for FSU football, we have high expectations for all of our student athletes, and we will not shy away from those high standards of conduct. We are moving forward as a program. Lugs, we'll start with you. What was your initial reaction upon hearing the Francois news?
That it was necessary. You cannot have a player that's in a position of leadership, particularly the quarterback position, that's had repeated issues off the field that are bringing and shedding a negative light upon the program. Listen, things were hard enough as it was for Florida State on the field in 2018. You can't go into the offseason and have these types of incidents come up at a position of leadership. So whether it's quarterback or anybody else, this was a tough decision for Willie Taggart. It had to be made.
You remove what you know to be possibly a cancer in your locker room, which is Deondre Francois, especially when young players come in like Luke's alluded to and says, this is a quarterback of our team. He's the leader. He's the most polarizing figure at Florida State, at probably the university, because it is football. Willie Taggart has to get every move right based on how they performed on the football field last season. And obviously he saw this as a step in that direction. And especially when you have an opportunity as a coach to make a statement to everybody else on your roster of what will and won't be tolerated, and you make one like this is a good move by Willie Taggart.
All right, so Francois is out. James Blackman now appears to be the guy. It sounded as if he was going to put his name in the transfer portal, but his name never appeared in that database. So, Luke's, assuming it's him moving forward, what does that mean at the quarterback position for FSU?
Well, he doesn't appear to be the guy. He's the only guy.
Right.
And that's the issue that Florida State has right now. Listen, this is a program that did not sign a quarterback in the 2018 class, lost a quarterback in the early signing period at North Carolina in Sam Howell out of North Carolina, and has yet to have a quarterback verbal commitment as we stand 2 days from the second signing period on February 6th. This is very concerning from a level of depth. If you're Kendall Briles, you're looking at two distinct areas of this football team that you have real concerns about. Your offensive front, which has plagued them for a couple of years, and what are you going to do at the quarterback in terms of numbers, in terms of that position? That's a scary, scary notion right now for this offensive staff.
Yeah, you mentioned it. I mean, Bailey Hockman, he transferred as well.
Yeah.
He went the junior college route, so they are very thin there, assuming it is James Blackman. So, Marcus, this is a team that's coming off a season where they failed to make a bowl game for the first time since 1981. So going into year two, what are reasonable expectations here for Willie Taggart?
Well, I was one who said when Willie Taggart got this job at Florida State, I know everybody was excited about him getting this job and taking this job, but I looked at his track record, obviously at USF, and then he went on to Oregon and left them pretty much prematurely, had a lot of things transpire even before they took the field for the first time as a football team, and Justin Herbert was the quarterback there. He had a lot in that cupboard with a successful program already. I don't know what the expectation is for Willie Taggart, because to me it seems like it's all hype with nothing really shown in top-tier Division I football. And oh, by the way, guys, and like Lugs knows already, Dabo Swinney and Clemson are not going anywhere. So it's not easy to win the ACC, period. But with that being said, all of the things that he brings along, I just never was sold on the fact that Willie Taggart would turn Florida State's program around. I wanted to wait and see, have a very optimistic view on what he would be able to do. He was a Florida guy. We talked about his ability to recruit in that area and get players there and have some success. So the jury is still out. Look, it's 1 year. I don't want to sound like I'm killing Willie Taggart and he's not going to have success at Florida State. But based on what we saw the first year under his command, there is a lot left to be desired at Florida State. And I know they made a commitment as well to bettering their facilities and kind of playing the game along with some of the top-tier programs. So we'll see what transpires.
Well, Marcus, I think if they've got a chemistry, a cancerous atmosphere in their locker room, this was the right move and a step in the right direction if you're going to correct that portion of your football team.
All right, we'll see if it is, in fact, addition by subtraction as they head into the second spring ball here and the late signing period for Willie Taggart. See how he closes here. So that Francois news was released hours before the Super Bowl kicked off. Hours before Bill Belichick, the head coach of the Patriots, was able to secure his 6th Lombardi trophy. And with it, Belichick matched his good friend Nick Saban, who has 6 national titles of his own at the college ranks. Both coaches played for the title this year, but have yet to win the title the same year. They coached together with the Cleveland Browns. Here's Tom Rinaldi on a friendship that goes back more than 30 years.
It might be the most significant friendship in all of football, and it started in 1982 at Navy. Nick Saban was an assistant, and Steve Belichick, a longtime scout on the same staff, who introduced Saban to his son Bill, then.
Because it was the most important one. Somebody to run the defense and somebody that, that I had confidence in.
It was one of the best things that I ever did professionally in terms of my growth. I never thought it was hard working for Bill because you knew exactly what he expected.
I learned a lot from Nick. Scheme, technique. In the end, it was really his defense at Cleveland.
How would you describe his ability to focus?
Better than anyone I've ever met in my life.
Who had the back on the screen? I did. David, you got to work through him, and you got to make the tackle on the guy, and don't let him run for a big play.
Who do you think is more demanding as a coach?
Nick. I think I might have just a little more patience than Nick.
In the 4 years together in Cleveland, the bond truly and deeply formed. Who is better at busting chops?
Probably Nick. Nick's pretty sharp.
He's got a dry sense of humor, but he can hold his own.
Who's a worse loser?
Yeah, it'd probably be a photo finish. We both take him pretty hard.
We probably both rank up there when it comes to that.
Given all that you've each achieved, what do you think you understand about one another that others simply can't?
How hard it is to sustain it, how hard it is to do it year after year, how you always have new players, your opponents have new players. You're the target for them. I mean, the bullseye's on you from them every week.
Colleagues, competitors, contemporaries. And through it all, they've been there for each other. As in Saban's first season in Miami, when he paused his preparations during a game week to be by his friend's side.
When my dad passed away in 2005, it was a Sunday night, and the funeral was Thursday, and honestly, the last person I expected to see walk into the funeral home was Nick Saban.
Why has your bond endured?
Tremendous amount of respect for him personally and professionally. You know, even though we haven't been together for a long time, there's that same mutual respect.
A great, unique look there at a couple of championship coaches. Guys, whose run of sustained success is more impressive? Marcus, is it Belichick's 6 Super Bowls in 18 years, or is it Saban's 6 national titles in the last 15?
Well, look, for as much as I love what Nick Saban has done and how hard it is to do it, Bill Belichick is doing this with the best players that football has to offer in the world. I think people need to understand that in context. And people will say, look, he has Tom Brady. That has a lot to do with it. But the way Bill Belichick has sustained success in the NFL, not only where every year the best of the best are trying to beat you and take the throne away, but also you have to continue to adjust and evolve because the league changes and it evolves. When you look at these guys, they are very similar and identical, but Bill Belichick is doing it against the best the world has to offer in the sport.
You know, that's interesting, Marcus. I actually would disagree. I think it's almost more difficult to do this with 17 to 21-year-olds, where you have rules and you have limited contact with them. They can only be in your building for 20 hours a week, and you're having significant roster turnovers. You're having to play with more and more inexperienced players as more and more players depart early for the National Football League. Certainly, it's difficult to win one game. 10 games, sustain it over the course of 5 to 10 years. But I think the one common trait that they both share that they don't get enough credit for is getting teams to respond to success, not adversity.
Yeah.
When everybody's patting you on the back and telling you how great you are, how do you get people to still play to that standard, rise to the level of expectation, and then exceed it year in and year out? I think that's both of these coaches' best trait.
It's really interesting when you try and analyze both of them. Nick Saban continues to recruit the best players amid all the staff turnover that he has. In the NFL, it's given parity. The fact that the worst teams get to draft so-called the best players, at least every year, the best player in the NFL draft. So certainly hard to argue either way. We had a couple of championship games there between the NFL and college football that fell, I guess you could say, flat. You had the Super Bowl, which was 13-3. It was competitive in the fourth quarter, but it was a tough watch. Clemson, Alabama was essentially over once the fourth quarter began, but we at least saw some scoring, 44-16. Tom, give you the first word here. Which game was better?
Oh, the College Football National Championship. Justin Ross, a wide receiver at Clemson, was worth the price of admission on his own. At least in that matchup, Marcus, there were explosive plays. There was some high-flying circus act type of offensive schemes and series throughout the course of the game. Last night was just a dud. You got to appreciate the defensive perspective and performance by both teams, but at least it was exciting, Marcus, to watch the College Football National Championship.
And because of what you said is why I absolutely disagree with you. Last night's Super Bowl to me, it was a great game defensively. I'm over here watching Wade Phillips and Bill Belichick play chess and checkers with two. Look, eventually the greater player and the greatest of all time was able to make a few plays in order to win that game. But if you would have told anybody that the Rams would only end up with 3 points and the Patriots would only end up with 3 points going into the fourth quarter, are you kidding me? That was the greatest thing I've seen in football in a long time. I like the shootouts and the scoring. It's fun to watch. But Lugs is a dang old quarterback. And Lugs wants points, and he wants the scoreboard to explode. I love the hits. I love the coverage. I love the chess game that Belichick played up front with the stunts and the line games and keeping Jared Goff off balance. And then on the other side of the football, if you hold the New England Patriots and Tom Brady to what L.A. was able to do for that duration of that game, that's amazing football.
And lose the game.
It's just defensive. I know, right? I know. Yeah. And lose. Look, when I was in the pros, the job was to hold a team to 17 points or less and give yourself that gives you the best opportunity to win. Yeah. The Patriots scored 13 with the greatest quarterback of all time and won a Super Bowl by 10 points. Let's just put that in perspective.
They hold the Rams to 3, and a defensive player didn't win Super Bowl MVP. Go figure. By the way, in defense of the Super Bowl, both teams were combined 100% in terms of red zone conversions. Do the math, 1 for 1. Up next, we're just 2 days away from National Signing Day 2.0. We'll look back on the biggest changes since the early signing period and what to look for on Wednesday.
I'll be going to the University of Oklahoma.
Whereas this jacket still fits me 10 years later. How about that?
I'll take my talents to Penn State.
University of Florida.
For the University of Florida. University of Florida. Go Gators.
I'll be taking my talents to the University of Oregon.
Where you going to school, little bro?
What's up?
I had to go ahead and get the shoes to match it.
I would like to pronounce my commitment to Louisiana State University.
University of Georgia.
I'll be attending University of Alabama.
No, we had some fun back in December, didn't we, Luke? Last year was the first in which signing day was broken up into 2 periods, an early National Signing Day in December, a later one in February. The class of 2019 took full advantage of the early period, more than the inaugural class. More than 86% of the ESPN 300 prospects have already signed national letters of intent entering Wednesday. Matt Schick, National Recruiting Director Tom Luginbill, along with Marcus Spears. What did we learn in the early signing period this time around, Luke?
That there were really no ill effects from the first time around. In fact, we saw an uptick in the numbers of prospects that signed from about 72% overall, which your player pool is about 2,800 players in a class, to close to 78% this last go around. And my biggest question as we go forward is the volatility that we saw with coaching staff movement, coaches leaving, getting fired, not just head coaches, but assistant coaches. In the month of January, Marcus, as we go forward, is this going to create maybe a little bit of a pause for kids to say, I don't know if I necessarily want to sign early now?
Lugs, that's exactly what I was thinking. And when you talk about the effects and ramifications of being on the field, you get a system change and you're not the same player anymore. And at some point, people are going to start taking that into account. It's either the high school coach's responsibility, it's the families or the guys that have been evaluating these programs. Now, here's the thing. Being a guy that was recruited like most of these guys were, I would have loved to get this process over with earlier. But that's just personal for me. I would have loved to be done with it, enjoy my senior year in high school, play, and just enjoy my time. But and I think the success of what you see this early signing period is because of that factor more than anything. Most of these guys have an idea of where they want to go. So it'll be interesting to see if that changes with what you just brought up, because that's something I've been thinking hard about.
Yeah, and I hope that it doesn't change, because I think it's very important to note that if you're a prospect and you're going through this process, I know that you develop relationships with people, but there better be more substance to your decision than just one individual, because the likelihood that you're going to play for that area coach, that position coach, the coordinator, or even the head coach over the span of 3 to 5 years is not overly high. So there better be something else that you're committed to with that program, with that university, with that city, town, its people, than just one individual on the coaching staff.
You certainly run a risk if you are a player and you have some leverage. If you sign early and that coach or assistant coach decides to leave, it's not just the players who are flipping and decommitting. Yep. We saw with Cliff Kingsbury, who decommitted. We saw with Manny Diaz, who flipped from Temple to Miami. So, again, there's a much more signing day coverage coming up this week on Wednesday. Coming your way beginning at noon Eastern on ESPN2. Up next, we'll wrap up this edition of College Football Live with an update to a Friday story on David Seville's Blade. According to the Sun-Herald in Biloxi, Art Briles may be a step closer to getting back to the college coaching ranks. The newspaper reporting the former Baylor head coach was on campus Monday interviewing for the open offensive coordinator position at Southern Miss. He was fired by Baylor in May of 2016 after investigation into the school's handling of misconduct, including allegations of violence against women. Tom, does Art Briles, are you okay with Briles getting back into the college coaching ranks?
You know what? I don't think it matters if I believe it's okay. It matters whether or not the president and the AD at Southern Mississippi think it's okay. Because get ready for the public backlash on this one, folks.
Yeah, they're starved to have some type of success, but I don't think Art Briles should be back in coaching. I mean, the thing, we get far removed, and time supposedly is supposed to continue to make us forget. This was a grown man making grown man decisions and covering the tracks of a lot of people that were doing bad things. Now, there's a difference in the second chance and knowing something is going on as egregious as what was going on at Baylor and letting it live. I don't think Art Briles should coach anymore.
We'll see if he gets a second chance. Hugh Freeze has gotten one. Rich Rodriguez, this is certainly a completely different situation. 3 and out, right in your wheelhouse. Spears, we're talking college basketball. Tennessee basketball has already avenged all 7 of the football team's losses from a season ago. You taking solace in that if you're on the football team?
No, not at all. That's embarrassing, by the way.
It is embarrassing.
Our basketball team is having to have our backs, per se. Tennessee is not a basketball school unless you get to pat some in the women's program. But when it comes to football, you're supposed to be defending your basketball team.
All right, let's go back to the football ranks here. And Julian Edelman, Luke's wide receiver from Kent State. The Golden Flashes getting an MVP for the first time.
Well, look at all the different things that he was doing in college. I mean, the guy was an electrifying athlete that they played him at quarterback, played him in the slide, returned kicks and punts, did all of the things that have made him the player that he is now. But this, going back to our discussion earlier with Bill Belichick and Nick Saban, this is all about player evaluation, man. What a job they did there.
And how about this? It wasn't a great game, but don't tell that to David Seville, who was awarded 2 tickets, surprised by Dabo Swinney. We showed you the video on Friday. 2 Super Bowl tickets. Here he is, guys. Marcus, memories for a lifetime. Pretty cool.
No question, man. He's been a mainstay at Clemson. He's probably the most popular person on the campus. And when the football team comes into town, everybody is looking for D. So, look, man, it's an amazing opportunity that we get to tell these stories here at ESPN. And Dabo Swinney buying into what he's doing with the little man, man. That's awesome.
David Seville gets to go to the Super Bowl after his Clemson team won a national championship. It's been a good few weeks for David Seville. We'll see you on Tuesday.